Waves rise and fall, their rhythm older than memory. The sea whispers, a song both fierce and gentle. This is where stories are born, carved into salt and foam. Tonight, we drift into the realm of a timeless tide. The tide belongs to Poseidon, lord of the endless ocean. He is not just a god of storms, but a keeper of balance. His domain stretches farther than the eye can wander. Each wave carries the echo of his eternal presence. Sailors once lifted prayers before setting their sails. They believed the sea heard, and sometimes it did. Poseidon is both mystery and protector, fury and calm. To know the ocean is to touch his living spirit. The trident he holds is more than power. It is a symbol of harmony, chaos, and renewal. The sea is not only water, but memory and myth. It teaches patience, awe, and respect with every tide. We step into this story as voyagers once did. With open hearts, we follow the rhythm of the waves. Listen now, as the eternal tide carries us deeper. This is the beginning of our journey with Poseidon. The sea begins with a whisper, softer than breath, yet older than stone. Its sound is constant, but its meaning shifts with time. At dawn, the waves are gentle, as if the ocean is still dreaming. At night, they speak in deeper tones, echoing secrets of the abyss. Long before men built ships, the sea was already alive. It carried within it the voice of Poseidon, hidden yet near. Every ripple on the water was said to be his hand brushing past. Every tide was a heartbeat, steady and eternal, moving without end. Those who listened carefully swore they heard words in the waves. They spoke not in human tongue, but in rhythm and pulse. A fisherman once said the sea hummed when storms were far away. Another swore it sighed when loneliness filled the shore. Poseidon was never seen, yet his presence could not be denied. The ocean itself was his language, vast and untamed. He whispered not to frighten, but to remind mortals of balance. For the sea is both cradle and trial, gift and demand. The whisper of the deep tells us we belong to something greater. It teaches that silence can be full of meaning and strength. The ancients believed each wave carried memory of the past. They said the sea remembers all journeys, all voices, all prayers. A child's laughter by the shore would echo far beneath the foam. A sailor's final song might rest forever in the ocean's depths. The deep held all these sounds, woven together like a chorus. Poseidon was its conductor, unseen but always listening. Some nights, when the moon rose bright, the whisper grew louder. It was said to sound like a hymn sung by the earth itself. Not all could hear it, only those who opened their hearts. The whisper spoke of tides eternal, of cycles unbroken, of beginnings born from endings, of endings that became new shores. It was gentle, yet carried power beyond measure, like truth itself. Those who followed the sound found courage in uncertain waters. For in the sea's whisper was the promise of return. Every voyage that began carried the hope of safe harbor. Every storm that rose carried the reminder of calm to come. The whisper taught that life is not a straight line, but a tide. It rises, it falls, it circles back in endless renewal. Poseidon's presence was not wrath, but rhythm, not command, but song. He was the keeper of the whisper that guides the living. To hear it was to understand that no journey is ever wasted. The sea carries us forward and brings us home in time. Each moment of fear, each moment of joy belongs to the tide. The whisper of the deep is eternal, a voice without end. It calls to sailors, dreamers, wanderers, and all who listen. It asks only that we honor the sea, and thus ourselves. For in listening, we become part of the eternal story of water. The whisper of the deep is Poseidon's gift to all who live. The trident stands tall, gleaming like sunlight caught in water. It is not only a weapon, but a language carved into divine form. Sailors once spoke of it as the key that holds the sea together. Its 3 points reach in different directions, yet they share one stem. Balance is its secret, for the sea itself is balance in motion. One prong speaks of power, the raw force that shapes waves and storms. The second prong speaks of mystery, the unknown depths beneath the surface. The third prong speaks of renewal, the gift of calm after the surge. Together, they tell the eternal story of Poseidon's domain. Each tide, each storm, each calm day mirrors the trident's truth. Fishermen believed its image kept them safe upon uncertain waters. They carved tridents on their boats, their nets, even their doorways, not as symbols of fear, but of respect and guidance. The trident reminded them that the sea is both fierce and kind. It could take, but it could also give with boundless generosity. Every island raised from the deep was seen as its blessing. Every new harbor was a mark of Poseidon's steady hand. The trident's meaning stretched far beyond the ocean's edge. It became a symbol of life's rhythm in the hearts of mortals. Power is nothing without mystery, and mystery is nothing without renewal. The trident shows that strength must flow like water, not stand still. Its threefold nature teaches harmony in the face of change. The sea does not rage forever, nor does it sleep forever. It moves in cycles, always returning to its eternal tide. In the glow of the moon, sailors swore they saw it shimmer. The trident seemed to float in the spray of the waves. It was as if Poseidon himself held it above the horizon. Each spark of light on the water was a message from the god, not a threat, but a reminder to live with respect and awe. For the sea belongs to no one, yet it touches every life. The trident speaks of shared destiny, a bond between land and ocean. Its shape is simple, yet its meaning is endless as the tide. Some called it the anchor of the world, steadying earth and sky. Others called it a song frozen into metal and light. Whatever the name, all agreed it held Poseidon's eternal spirit. The trident is not a weapon of conquest, but of balance. It shows us that true strength lies in harmony, not in control. The waves rise, the waves fall, yet the trident endures. Its message flows in every current, waiting for those who listen. To understand the trident is to understand the ocean itself. Its power is vast, but its wisdom is greater still. In its silent gleam, the sea tells us its ancient truth, that life is threefold: power, mystery, and renewal. And in that balance, we find the eternal tide of Poseidon. The sea has always been both a mystery and a home for those who live near its edge. Generations of sailors and fishermen built their lives upon its shifting moods. They knew its calm waters could turn wild, yet they trusted its rhythm deeply. Before every journey, they offered prayers to Poseidon, guardian of the ocean. These prayers were not born of fear alone, but of gratitude and respect. Fishermen whispered thanks for each day the nets came back full. Sailors bowed their heads for safe passage across the endless horizon. It was said that Poseidon listened, not with ears, but with the tide. When prayers rose with sincerity, the sea grew gentle in response. Waves softened, storms waited, and the wind carried ships with kindness. The ocean was never truly tame, yet it seemed to honor devotion. A story tells of a small village that relied only on fishing. One season the sea grew quiet, and their nets returned empty. The people gathered by the shore and lifted their voices together. They promised to share the sea's gifts and not take more than needed. The next dawn, fish swam close to shore. Filling their baskets again, they believed Poseidon had answered, restoring balance through their vow. This tale spread to other coasts, reminding all of the gods' favor. To those who lived with humility, the sea became a gentle ally. But to those who showed greed, the waters turned restless and cold. Respect was the key, and gratitude was the offering Poseidon cherished. He was not a god who demanded temples of stone or gold. His temple was the horizon, and his altar was the shoreline. Every tide that touched the land was his silent blessing. Every breeze that filled a sail was a gift of guidance. The fishermen believed they were never truly alone at sea. Poseidon walked with them in every ripple and every current. Children were taught from a young age to bow to the waves. They placed shells at the water's edge as tokens of thanks. Simple acts carried deep meaning, binding their hearts to the ocean. The protector they honored was not distant, but always present. His presence was felt in the rhythm of the waves themselves. In calm waters, they heard his kindness. In rising winds, they felt his warning. In returning safely, they saw his mercy. Poseidon's protection was not a promise of safety in every storm. It was the promise that the sea itself remembers devotion. Even in hardship, those who honored him found strength to endure. For the sea is not only a trial, but also a companion. It listens, it answers, and it teaches through patience and awe. The protector of sailors is not a figure of fear, but of balance. His watchful gaze lies in every crest and every tide. Those who sail with gratitude sail with Poseidon beside them. And in their stories, he remains eternal, guardian of the deep. The tide is more than water moving between shore and horizon. It is a rhythm older than words, older than memory itself. The ancients believed the tide was Poseidon's breath upon the world. Each rise was an inhale, each retreat a slow and steady exhale. To them, the ocean's pulse was the clearest sign of his presence. The eternal tide was not chaos, but a cycle of balance and return. What leaves always comes back, though never in quite the same way. This is the lesson the sea has whispered to humankind for ages. Nothing is lost, only changed, reshaped, and carried forward once again. A broken net may still bring food if mended with patience. A lost ship may inspire new sails to be built stronger and truer. So too do our lives mirror the rhythm of the tide itself. We rise with joy, we fall in sorrow, yet we rise again. The tide teaches that no ending is ever truly final. What drifts away today may return tomorrow in a new form. Sailors trusted the tide to guide them home when stars grew dim. Fishermen trusted the tide to bring schools of fish close to shore. Mothers told children the tide was a cradle rocking them to sleep. Its motion was comfort, proof that the sea was alive and aware. In this endless flow, Poseidon gave mortals a map for their own lives. The tide was both teacher and healer, a rhythm of quiet wisdom. Storms might scatter ships, but the tide always drew the waters back. Waves might crash in fury, yet calm would follow in gentle return. In the eternal tide, people saw the promise of renewal. They saw that despair could be washed away like footprints in the sand. They saw that joy, too, would come again like the morning sun. The tide reminded them that time itself is a circle, not a line. Every loss carries within it the seed of new beginnings. Every return carries the echo of what was once left behind. Poseidon's tide is eternal because it belongs to all of life. The farmer sees it in the cycle of planting and harvest. The traveler feels it in departures and homecomings across the years. The heart knows it in love found, lost, and discovered again. The eternal tide connects sea and sky, mortal and divine, past and future. It is Poseidon's promise that nothing truly ends. It only changes shape. A sailor once wrote that the tide was his truest companion. It reminded him that no journey was without return in some form. The tide guided him, comforted him, and carried his spirit forward. So it is for us all, whether we sail or stand ashore. We live by the tide, carried within its eternal current. It shapes us, renews us, and reminds us of our place. For in its rise and fall, Poseidon speaks with endless patience. His message is simple yet eternal. Nothing is ever lost forever. The eternal tide carries all things back into the embrace of the sea. And in that embrace, life begins anew with every breath of water. The sea and the sky have always been bound in a silent embrace. One cannot be understood without the other, for they move together. When the wind rises in the heavens, the waves answer in kind. When clouds darken, the ocean mirrors their heavy shadows below. Ancient sailors saw this bond as a sign of divine harmony. They believed Poseidon and Zeus were not rivals, but brothers in rhythm. The thunder above was the sky's call, and the tide below its echo. Together, they created the vast symphony of storms and calms alike. Each lightning strike above was mirrored by a wave's crash below. Each clearing sky was followed by waters turning glassy and still. This union of sea and sky taught mortals about connection and balance. No storm lasted forever, for the sky and sea soon found peace again. Travelers believed Poseidon guided the sea while respecting the sky's command. He did not defy the heavens, but worked with them in flow. The tide answered the pull of the moon, sister of the night. The clouds brought rain, feeding the sea so it would never tire. Every element had its role, and Poseidon honored their unity. The meeting of sea and sky was a covenant, not a war. Fishermen said the horizon was proof of this eternal embrace. It was the place where blue water kissed blue air endlessly. The horizon shifted with each day, yet it was always there. It symbolized hope, the reminder that all things are joined in time. A sailor at sea could look to the horizon and feel calm, for he knew Poseidon's tide was guided by bonds greater than storms. Even in chaos, there was order, woven by sky and sea. One tale tells of a voyage where clouds hid every star. The crew was lost, uncertain of where home might be found. Then the winds rose gently, pushing their sails toward calmer waters. When dawn broke, the horizon glowed gold, where sea met sky. They believed Poseidon and Zeus had guided them together in mercy. From that day, they honored both thunder and tide as kin. The sea is vast, the sky unending, yet they are mirrors. Each reflects the other, sharing moods, colors, and shifting patterns of light. This reflection is Poseidon's reminder that nothing exists in solitude. Every wave carries the color of the sky above it. Every cloud drifts with moisture drawn from the waters below. This endless cycle teaches us that harmony sustains the world itself. The ancients looked upward and saw gods, then looked outward and saw seas. In both places, they found the same truth of connection. Poseidon's rule was not isolation, but part of a greater whole. He belonged to the sky as much as the sea belonged to him. The meeting of sea and sky is not a line, but a promise. It is the endless vow that earth, water, and air are united. And within this bond, Poseidon's eternal tide flows without end. The ocean floor is a realm few mortals have dared to imagine. Beneath the rolling surface lies a kingdom untouched by sunlight. It is said Poseidon walks there, where silence hums like eternity. The seabed is not barren, but alive with colors unknown to land. Corals bloom like frozen flames, gardens sculpted by time and tide. Fish glide like jewels, their scales flashing with hidden brilliance. Every cave, every trench holds whispers of stories long forgotten. Legends say Poseidon shaped these depths with care and intention. His trident was not only a weapon, but a tool of creation. With it, he carved valleys deep where mystery would forever dwell. The abyss became a sacred place, veiled from human eyes. There, Poseidon kept the secrets too vast for the surface world. The creatures of the deep were said to be his loyal guardians. Gentle giants swam with grace, protecting the hidden wonders below. Even the smallest shell carried a fragment of divine design. The ocean floor was a library of memory, a vault of myths. Every ripple in the sand marked the passage of ancient ages. The shells that washed ashore were messages from this hidden library. They reminded mortals that the ocean holds more than they can see. Some stories tell of divers who ventured into forbidden depths. They returned speaking of glowing light where no sun could reach. They described forests of coral taller than towers of stone. They spoke of music that came not from sound, but from feeling. This was Poseidon's song, a hymn woven into the waters. It told of balance, patience, and the eternal turning of tides. No man could capture it, for it was made of living silence. Only those who listened with their hearts could hear its meaning. The ocean floor was not meant to be conquered, only respected. Its beauty was a gift, but its power was a warning. Poseidon kept this balance, ensuring life thrived in hidden harmony. Every creature had its place, from the smallest shrimp to the whales. Even darkness itself was part of the sacred design. The absence of light made space for a different kind of wonder. Mortals who told these tales spoke with awe, not fear. They said the deep was not empty, but endlessly full. It was the breath of the world, hidden beneath the waves. Poseidon walked this floor as a shepherd, not a tyrant. He was the keeper of mysteries, not their destroyer. And those who honored the ocean learned from its quiet depth. The lesson was always the same. The unseen shapes the seen. Just as roots sustain trees, the depths sustain the seas above. Without the deep, there would be no waves, no tides, no shore. The ocean floor, veiled in darkness, was the cradle of life. And in its silence, Poseidon's eternal tide found its heartbeat. Legends tell of islands born not of stone, but of Poseidon's breath. These were not lands fixed forever, but shifting gifts of the sea. When the tide withdrew, sand rose like golden threads from the deep. When the tide returned, the same lands vanished without a trace. Travelers called them breathing islands, alive with the rhythm of tides. They appeared at dawn, shimmered by noon, and dissolved by twilight. Some said Poseidon shaped them as resting places for weary sailors. Others believed they were lessons, teaching mortals of life's impermanence. Each island carried treasures, shells arranged like sacred offerings. Birds nested briefly, knowing the land was borrowed, not owned. Fishermen found fresh springs bubbling from the sand's fragile heart. They drank, gave thanks, and left before the tide reclaimed it all. One tale speaks of a crew stranded on an endless sea. Exhausted and hopeless, they prayed for guidance beneath the stars. At dawn, they awoke to find an island of white sand. Palm trees swayed gently, casting shade upon crystal pools. They rested, healed, and gathered strength to continue their voyage. When they departed, they marked the spot on their maps. But when they returned years later, the island was gone. Only waves remained, rolling with quiet laughter of the sea. The story spread, and mortals learned a sacred truth from it. Not all gifts were meant to last. Some existed only to guide. The breathing islands reminded them to honor what is fleeting. To see beauty, knowing it may vanish, is a form of wisdom. Poseidon's will was not to grant permanence, but to inspire gratitude. The shifting shores echoed the rhythm of life itself. Moments rise, shine brightly, and then sink back into memory. Each tide carried not just water, but the passing of time. The islands were messages, written in sand and erased by waves. They spoke without words. Cherish what you are given now. Even when mortals could not understand, they felt awe and humility. For in every vanishing island, Poseidon's presence was clear. He was the master of both abundance and release. To cling was futile, but to appreciate was divine. Sailors began to sing songs of the fleeting lands. Their voices rose with the waves, praising the mystery of tides. They did not mourn the loss, but celebrated the gift of sight. In every farewell, they saw the promise of return. For if an island could vanish, so too could it reappear. The sea was a circle, endless in giving and taking. Poseidon's eternal tide was the hand that shaped its rhythm. And mortals, for a brief moment, shared in its sacred dance. The breathing islands may be gone, but their lesson remains. Impermanence is not loss. It is the heartbeat of creation. And in every wave that rises and falls, Poseidon whispers again. The sea has always been a mirror for human dreams and fears. Sailors looked upon its vastness and felt both awe and trembling. For in its depths, they saw reflections of their own fragile souls. Poseidon's tide was more than water. It was a teacher of courage. Those who dared to sail knew the ocean was both path and trial. Its storms tested resolve, while its calms offered moments of peace. To set sail was to surrender, trusting Poseidon's unseen guidance. One story tells of a boy watching the harbor's restless waters. He dreamed of adventure, though his heart quivered with uncertainty. His father, a weathered sailor, told him of the tide's wisdom. "The sea is not cruel," he said, "but it reveals who you are. The tide will lift you if you honor its rhythm with trust." The boy carried these words and one day braved his first voyage. The waves rocked his boat. Yet he remembered the lessons of calm. Fear began to fade, replaced by wonder at the sea's immensity. He realized Poseidon was not punishing him, but showing his strength. Every crest and fall of water was a reminder to endure. The ocean whispered that courage was not the absence of fear. It was the choice to keep moving even when fear remained. The sailors who embraced this truth found not only survival, but growth. Their spirits were reshaped as surely as cliffs by endless waves. Each return to shore carried stories, not of conquest, but of change. They spoke of nights where stars shone like lanterns above dark seas. They spoke of mornings when the horizon promised new beginnings. In every tale, Poseidon's hand was felt, though never seen. For his gift was not safety, but the strength to face the unknown. The sea became a sanctuary where mortals met their deepest selves. It stripped away pride, teaching humility before its vast expanse. It demanded patience, for no tide could be hurried or slowed. And it granted perspective, showing that each wave is part of eternity. The boy from the harbor grew into a man of steady heart. He no longer feared the sea, but listened to its guiding song. When storms rose, he felt the same awe as in calm waters. For both were Poseidon's ways of shaping the spirit within him. His voyages were less about reaching distant lands than about returning with a heart tempered by the rhythm of eternal tides. The sea was not a place to conquer, but a place to learn. Each wave was a word, each tide a sentence in a greater story. Poseidon's eternal tide spoke not in thunder, but in quiet revelation. It told mortals that the greatest journeys were always inward, and that to face the sea was to face one's own reflection. In this way, courage was born, flowing as endlessly as the tide. And so the sea, through Poseidon, became a mirror of the soul, forever teaching, forever guiding, forever carrying mortals toward truth. There are stories of ships that vanished into mist, yet never truly lost. Sailors whispered that Poseidon carried them to hidden sanctuaries. These places were not marked on maps, but on hearts that believed. They were havens beyond storms, islands untouched by sorrow or time. Some called them the harbors of eternity, where tides stood still. There, weary travelers found rest, guided by Poseidon's gentle hand. One tale tells of a merchant ship caught in endless tempests. Winds howled, waves towered, and despair filled the hearts of men. But at the breaking point, the sea grew calm as glass. Out of the fog appeared a shore glowing with soft golden light. The crew stepped onto land where fruit trees bowed with abundance. Streams sang over stones, and the air tasted sweet as spring. They rested, healed, and felt no hunger or fear in that place. Time seemed to pause, as if eternity had folded into the present. When they returned to sea, the storm was gone, skies clear. But no matter how they searched, they could never find it again. The sanctuary had vanished, like a dream slipping through dawn. Yet the memory remained, a gift of Poseidon's unseen mercy. Such stories spread, and mortals came to see the sea differently. Not as an endless peril, but a keeper of unexpected grace. For Poseidon was not only lord of storms, but also of refuge. He gave rest where it was least expected, teaching hope to the weary. The sea was vast, yet within it existed secret havens of peace. These sanctuaries were not for greed, but for souls in need. They appeared only to those who sailed with humility and faith. For arrogance could not see what gratitude revealed. In these stories, Poseidon's eternal tide was not fear, but renewal. It was the rhythm that reminded mortals of cycles beyond sight. Every hardship carried within it the seed of rest and relief. Every storm hid the promise of calm waiting on the horizon. The sanctuaries of the sea became metaphors for the soul's journey. They taught that within struggle, moments of grace will arise. They showed that the ocean's vastness holds both trial and blessing. The tide, eternal and unbroken, carries us to both in balance. Sailors sang of these hidden havens, voices rising with the waves. They sang not to find them, but to honor their mystery. For they knew Poseidon's mercy was not to be demanded, but received. The harbors of eternity could not be mapped, only remembered. They lived on in songs, in prayers, in the rhythm of tides. Perhaps they still wait, beyond the reach of mortal sight. Perhaps they are not places, but moments, when fear becomes peace. Whatever they are, they remain part of Poseidon's eternal story. A reminder that even in vast uncertainty, there is hidden refuge. And in the endless tide, mercy flows as surely as the waves. The sea stretches beyond horizon, where sky melts into endless blue. In that union of sky and water, Poseidon's eternal tide still breathes. It is not a tide of destruction, but of unbroken cycles and rhythms. Every wave carries memory, whispering truths older than stone or flame. The sailors who once prayed to Poseidon understood this quiet power. They knew the sea was not simply a path, but a teacher of patience. It taught humility, for no man could conquer what belonged to eternity. It taught hope, for no storm lasted forever, and calm would always return. The tide was a song, steady and soft, guiding hearts without words. Those who listened found wisdom written not in ink, but in water. They learned that life itself follows the rhythm of the sea. Moments of turbulence give way to stillness as waves retreat and rise. The eternal tide reminded mortals of beginnings hidden in endings. It showed that nothing is truly lost, only transformed in the current. A fisherman's net torn by waves could still bring unexpected gifts. A voyager lost in fog could still find new shores through faith. In every trial, Poseidon's tide carried seeds of quiet renewal. And so, the ocean became more than danger. It became a companion. It was a mirror of the soul, vast, changing, yet ever whole. Generations passed, but the tide's rhythm did not falter or fade. Children born near the sea grew with its song in their dreams. Elders spoke of it as a heartbeat, steady beneath all existence. Even those who never touched the shore felt its unseen pull. For Poseidon's eternal tide belonged not only to sailors, but to all. It was in the rivers flowing to sea, in rains that kissed the earth. It was in the breath of wind, in clouds drifting like foam. The tide linked every life, weaving worlds together in hidden harmony. And though temples crumbled and prayers grew faint with passing years, the sea remained, carrying Poseidon's legacy in each timeless wave. Not as a god to be feared, but as a presence eternal. A reminder that within life's storms, peace waits patiently to return. A truth that every ending cradles the promise of beginning again. The tide eternal of Poseidon is not bound to one shore. It is within every journey, every cycle, every rise and fall. It whispers to those who pause and listen with an open heart. It sings of strength, of gentleness, of eternity within change. And as waves kiss the sand once more, the story closes gently. But the tide does not end. It continues beyond this telling, carrying with it all voices, all prayers, all forgotten songs. Ever moving, ever giving, forever returning, forever whole. The tide eternal of Poseidon flows on, within and beyond us all. The story of Poseidon's eternal tide draws to its closing shore. Yet as one chapter ends, the waves remind us there is no true ending. The sea does not stop when the sun dips. It continues under stars. It whispers to the moon, pulls gently at the earth, guiding all things. So too does this tale remain alive, moving in unseen currents of memory. Every sailor who felt the tide's embrace carries the story within. Every listener who hears these words becomes part of its flowing song. The tide eternal of Poseidon is not just about water and storms. It is about change, about the rhythm that links loss and renewal. It is about the mystery that even mortals can sense in silence. The tide teaches that life is both fragile and endless in motion. It shows us that strength lies not in resistance, but in flow. It reminds us that even in vastness, there is presence and care. Poseidon's legacy is not fear, but respect for what cannot be held. His mercy rests not in power, but in offering calm within chaos. The sanctuaries, the storms, the songs, they all form the same circle. And in that circle we find meaning, even without grasping it fully. For the sea is greater than our words, yet our words still honor it. As long as waves touch the shore, his story will not fade. It lives in the cry of gulls, in sails filled by patient wind. It moves in the hush of tide pools and the roar of open waters. It exists wherever hearts remember the balance of strength and grace. The eternal tide of Poseidon asks us to listen with stillness, to see beyond fear and discover wonder in every returning wave, to trust that endings are beginnings, as night always leads to dawn. And though the god may be unseen, his song remains in the tide, a hymn of endless cycles, of journeys unbroken and souls renewed, a promise that what is carried away will one day return anew. Now, as the tale closes, imagine the sea stretching before you, its horizon without limit, its depths beyond mortal measure. Listen to the rhythm, steady, eternal, echoing within your chest. Feel the connection between water, wind, earth, and your own breath. For you too are part of Poseidon's tide, whether near or far. Your story flows with the greater current, unseen but unbroken. And though this voice may fall silent, the tide continues to speak. In every wave that meets the sand, in every drop that falls as rain, in every storm that passes, leaving calm brighter than before. This is the gift of the sea, the lesson of eternity. So carry it with you, like sailors once carried hope across waters. Know that Poseidon's tide belongs to all, not only to the deep. It belongs to the earth, the sky, the rivers, and to you. An endless motion, a timeless truth, a song without final note. The tide eternal of Poseidon flows onward, forever and forevermore.